So we arrive at stage number 5 of the major arcana, of the journey of the Fool through the major arcana. The Fool, which is the soul in its sort of primal stage or state, has travelled through the male and female spiritual principle of the magician and the high priestess in their rawest form, rawest sort of spiritual energy. Is come across the mother and the father in the form of the empress and the emperor, the kind of temporal, earthly authority and structure. And now we arrive at a more sophisticated kind of structure and authority. I mean, all of the first line is pretty much how the soul is kind of, this is the first line of the major arcana here, how this kind of budding soul is dealing with authority, if we like, dealing with different kinds of energy. And this is the energy of the Hierophant that we arrive at, which is number 5. Number 5, first of all, is a number of structure and kind of severity and restriction. In the Tree of Life is Gebura, which is severity and restriction. So number 5 is quite a harsh number anyway, can be, in that it poses limitations. And with the Hierophant, we see that it's a figure clad in blue, underneath blue, but mainly in red and white, wearing ceremonial, formal clothing, very kind of luxurious, and they're not poor clothing. He's wearing a crown. He's holding what looks like a really big gold key. He's sat on a throne between 2 pillars. He's in quite luxurious, rich surroundings, I would say. He's got his feet on a beautiful carpet, at his feet. There are 2 keys at his feet, and there are 2 figures at his feet. One has got roses on their robe, and one has got lilies on their robe, so red and white. And the symbolism recalls that of the magician in that it's red and white, and we saw that red and white is about the alchemical symbols of male and female and reconciling the two. So he has got a lot of that sort of authority on him. He's wearing those clothes of red and white. But he's wearing formal clothes. He's sat on a throne and is in between 2 pillars, which, unlike the 2 pillars of the high priestess, are the same. They're quite open pillars. There is nothing behind him. There's nothing hidden behind him. There's no curtain. He's a throne. It's very obvious that this man is in authority. Hierophant, the Hierophant means it's like a priest or a teacher, and is is holy, but he has authority with his holiness. And what the Hierophant was called initially in the tarot was the Pope, because he represents the head of the spiritual movement, if we like, what we call church, on earth. So the Hierophant is channeling spirituality into something formal and into an earthly authority. Is the official spiritual leader, whereas the high priestess is the holiest of the female, the Shekinah, the holiest female, but she's esoteric knowledge, she's inner knowledge, she's kind of hidden spiritual knowledge, informal, if you like. The Hierophant is very formal. The Hierophant is also linked to the sign of Taurus. Now, Taurus is a very formal sign, and it's all about conformity and in keeping with the rules of society. Whereas the Emperor was Aries, which is, the ruler, the active Mars, warrior principle, so the warrior king. Taurus is earth and it's conformity, and that's what the Hierophant is linked to. The Hierophant is holding up his right hand to heaven. It's also holding up this key in his left hand. And this gesture, again, is a gesture of connection with heaven and earth, between heaven and earth. But while the magician was channeling the energy directly, from as above through below through himself as a conduit of divine energy. So he's the conduit. He can channel the energy however he wishes to. And partly with the Empress as well. With the Hierophant, is again, it's a formal business. He's channeling that energy into the formal church, the organized church. So he's saying to you, I am the medium, it's through me that divinity expresses itself. There is no room for your own interpretation here. I interpret everything. That's what the Hierophant is all about. It's all about formality and conforming to the rules. It's about how we conform to ethical rules and spiritual rules here on earth. And it's about fitting in really with society when it comes to spirituality, when it comes to ethics, when it comes to relationships. For example, the Hierophant often will represent marriage, the institution of marriage, because the marriage regulates how we relate to one another in a relationship, how we formalize a relationship, which is essentially, a sexual and love relationship has a lot of spirituality about it. So again, it's regulating, it's expressing what's inside and regulating it in a way that is acceptable to the wider society, so that there is no room for deviation or for your own interpretation. The High Priestess is urging you to look within you to find your own spiritual way. The Hierophant is not. The Hierophant is saying, follow me, I'll show you the way. He has the key at his feet, and the key are the keys to the church. And that sort of reminds us a bit of St. Peter, who is supposed to have had the keys, to the church here on earth. And again, these two figures are looking up to him for wisdom. So again, we've got a situation where we have three figures. In this sense, this is a card, again, because there are three figures in the card is about how relationships are regulated, is very important. Like, there are other cards in the tarot as well with more than one figure, and it's important how, the figures relate to one another. So this card expresses power, the power of the formal church, the power of formal spirituality, the power of conformity when it comes to beliefs and ethics and morals. So this is what we need to think about when the Hierophant appears. He's also a teacher. How do we deal with teachers and teaching? How do we learn? Because Hierophant means really a holy messenger, someone who has, a holy message or a divine message for us and is carrying this message, and is being tasked by the gods or by God to give us this message. So again, there is not much room for your own interpretation. And some of us might love the Hierophant for that reason, because he guides us and structures our beliefs, and which is what we need. And some of us may not like that at all, because we follow our own beliefs, our own spirituality. So what you will need to do is reflect on what the Hierophant means to you. How do you relate to, first of all, spirituality, spiritual authority? Are you part of a particular church or religion, or do you follow your own spiritual path? Are you a sort of spiritual outcast in the sense that you've left your kind of original religion of choice, or have you ever, maybe you've never followed a particular religion, but you have your own beliefs? Do you feel stifled by formal conformity in terms of ethics and morality and religion, or do you feel supported by it? What's your attitude towards marriage and relationship? How do you feel that relationships should be formalized, for example, if at all? What about your ethics and your morality? Do you feel that your ethics and morality should be prescribed, by law, by society? Or do you believe that you're able to kind of decide for yourself, what's ethical and what isn't? I guess the Wiccan the Wiccan read that any harm none, do as you will, is kind of directly opposite to the idea of the Hierophant. But if it was, anything, I guess anything that is applied too strictly and too inflexibly, any kind of ethical or religious code would then reflect the Hierophant. So have a thought. What's your relationship with teaching as well, and learning and teachers? So have a thought about all these factors. How does the Hierophant affect you? What are your feelings about him in your life? And if you kind of meditate on this card, it's good to meditate on the Hierophant and then kind of think about, what happens in our lives, and maybe journal any event that remind us of the Hierophant during the course of the day, for example. So I'd like you to put your thoughts and your reflections and your experiences in the comments below. That would be great. And also, as usual, please give me any feedback on these videos and let me know if there are any other topics that you would like to talk more about, or you'd like me to talk more about. Please feel free to comment. And I will leave you with the Hierophant, which is number 5 in the Major Arcana. And until then, goodbye. Thank you very much for watching and listening.